and just sort of let it rest. Try and make sure that it's at least sort of submerged by the darker mix. Makes it a bit easier for serving. The thing with these chocolate fondants is you can make them a few hours before you need them, so there's not too much of a concern as there is now making them just before you serve them. You can have them in the fridge for up to 6 to 8 hours before you actually need to cook them. So we'll start making the pear sauce now. We'll take a small pot and put the pears into it. Now quite simply, you just need a bit of sugar and a bit of water. About 1/3 of the amount of water as the volume of pears. And we'll go with 3 spoonfuls of caster sugar. Allow this to come to the boil and cook it for about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll start now on the beetroot relish. So we want this on a medium to low heat. Put a small saucepan on with a little bit of butter in it. It's about a tablespoon. Before the butter melts, put your onion and garlic into the pan with the butter before it melts. You want to cook this until the butter starts becoming slightly golden. This will take a few minutes. If you cook slowly over a lower heat, you'll have much better control over the ingredients as you cook. It may take longer, but you'll have less likelihood that your ingredients will burn as you cook. We're now going to start off with our bacon sauce that's going to go with our chicken. Into that we'll need a larger pan on quite a high gas actually. About gas mark 3. Put a pan in with about 2 tablespoons of butter in it and allow the butter to melt. Once the butter has started to melt in your saucepan for your sauce, put in your coarsely chopped onions and garlic and your pieces of bacon. Allow them to cook until they're golden. We'll come back to this in about 5 minutes and we'll show you the process. Alright, we'll just remove the tomatoes from the oven. You can tell they're cooked because the surface of them becomes quite dry and the corners actually start taking on quite a dark colour. Now we've turned the heat down on all the pots here just so that we can control the burning, well, stop the burning. The onions and garlic have taken quite a golden colour, so they're ready to get their vinegar. Same with the onions and the bacon for the sauce. We use vinegar and reduce it heavily to concentrate a flavour. It gives it a sort of a tang. This is a beetroot relish, so it's naturally got to be a sweet and sour sort of deal. So into the onions, 3 tablespoons of white wine vinegar, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. Into the onion and bacon pot, we'll put just the 1 tablespoon of white wine vinegar. This also loosens up any of the bits that are stuck to the bottom of the pan, like so. You can see that these brown bits scrape off. We then need to reduce this down until the vegetables actually start frying again. This will mean that the vinegar has completely evaporated and it will take away most of the bitterness that is inside it. The pears as well on the back stove. We'll simmer these until they actually start losing their integrity. They start softening down and looking a bit like applesauce. Chunky applesauce. Just turn the heat up underneath the bacon and onion till about a medium. Alright, so the sauce has now had the vinegar is reduced down off the sauce and it's become quite syrupy on the beetroot relish. Now for the sauce with the bacon and the onion, you can see that there's no moisture besides butter in the bottom of this pan. You can tell because of the type of bubbles. Now into this to make a tasty sauce, we're going to put about 150 mils of white wine. This is a Chardonnay. You can use anything that you've got about. And then let this wine reduce down until it's a very, very powerful sort of, until it's reduced down. And then we'll add some stock. Our stock is some vegetable stock cubes. The vinegar is now, with the fine onions, has now become quite syrupy. And if you're to taste it, it'll be quite sharp and quite sweet, which is really what you wanted in a relish. We'll then add the grated cooked beetroot to the pot. We'll give it a good stir and allow that to cook on a low temperature for about 5 minutes. I'm then now going to go check my things in the oven. The parsnips will need turning, and the potatoes, I'll just give the tray a good shake. The parsnips are about half cooked now. They're soft to the touch, but they're not golden all over. I've turned them over, and we're going to set these aside half cooked for the time being, until we are actually ready to start cooking our chicken. When we start cooking our chicken, we'll put the parsnips back into the oven, reheat them, crispen them up so that they're perfect when they come out. Right, so we'll just move the sauce pot so it's a bit closer. And you'll be able to see that most of the white wine has reduced down, and we're left with a kind of a brownish, oniony, bacony sludge. We're going to reduce that down a little bit further until the wine's completely evaporated, and then we'll add 200 or 250 mils, thereabouts, of the vegetable stock. Right, so the big pan, the wine has evaporated off this pan. We can now tell, the easiest way to tell is because it will start catching and you'll get the darker marks will start returning to the bottom of the pan. So into that we're going to add about a cup, which is half of this, of vegetable stock. It's a bit over half, but it doesn't matter. Right, I'm going to allow that to simmer. Right, the beetroot relish, which doesn't actually need much more cooking, is ready now. You can see it's nice and glossy, it's nice and warm. We'll taste it and then add, tiny bits of salt and pepper just to make sure that it tastes right. Now the secret to when you're seasoning food is that you can always add more. You can't take it away. So if you put in a lot of salt, chances are you're going to over-season your food, and there's nothing worse than an over-seasoned meal. We'll just take this off the heat and allow it to sit on one side. Okay, so now we've got to come to thicken our chicken sauce. To do that, we're going to take a small amount of cold water and a teaspoon of corn flour. It's important to use corn flour to dissolve corn flour in cold water, otherwise it just doesn't work. We need to wait until our sauce is boiling. Once it's boiling, we'll stir it in a little bit at a time until the sauce starts to thicken. We'll then put a small amount of cream, a tablespoon in, and allow that to cook away at the back gas, undisturbed, just for a few minutes until we're ready for it. So over a heat, quite large frying pan with a good glug of oil in it. There's always a problem when it comes to telling when oil is hot or not. Quite simply, it becomes a thinner liquid the hotter it goes. So that moves around relatively slowly, so it needs a little bit more heat. Failing that, you'll get a light smoke coming off your pan. If that's happened, then you're at an optimum cooking temperature. Now my sauce at the back is now boiling. We're going to dissolve in, stir in, just dissolve that, make sure, some of our corn flour. Sauce is boiling away nicely. We can see that the corn flour has thickened it up. Turn that to the heat, quite low, and add a tablespoon of double cream. This is just to make the sauce a little bit richer and a little bit smoother. 2 tablespoons of double cream. The pan is hot. You can see there's a light smoke coming off it. Just sort of slide them in and let them be. The secret with these is not to turn them, just to let them colour by themselves.